Hi, Misha here, and we've already talked about the X-Wing some, the Y-Wing, the A-Wing, the B-Wing, and those were kind of the four main Rebel starfighters in the original trilogy. Now I thought we would talk about one of the new ones added under Disney canon for the movie Rogue One, the U-Wing. And I have two little die-casts here. This is from the Black Series Titanium, which is pretty much the grandchild of the old Micro Machines line. And we have the Hot Wheels collection. Pretty much the exact same ship, just two different takes on it. So which do I like better, and what do we know about the U-Wing? Well, not a whole lot because it's pretty new to canon, but it is an interesting design. This is from Incom, the makers of the X-Wing and T-16 Skyhopper, and even the Snow Speeder, and all kinds of interesting ships in Star Wars. And not long after the X-Wing was finalized and going into production, the Empire nationalized the Incom Corporation, which pretty much everyone left, and yeah. One of their final products was the U-Wing here. It was to be a support ship, a utility ship, with kind of fighting capabilities, but not a starfighter. In fact, it was meant to be much like the real world Black Hawk, and that's evidenced in the name. This is called the UT-60D, and the Black Hawk's official name is UH60. So very clear acknowledgement there. Now, Incom had developed this and had gotten past the initial prototyping stage. It was getting into the first kind of pre-production small batch run when the nationalization happened. In that batch, pretty much in its entirety, dozens of ships, maybe even 100, somehow accidentally went missing, and then just coincidentally started showing up, being spotted during rebel attacks, rebel assaults. And this was a couple of years before the Battle of Yavin, so I don't know, 3 or 2 BBY. And everyone's favorite senator that never really gets good screen time, Bail Organa, was the one who kind of facilitated this before his planet blew up from underneath him. And so rebels ended up with kind of an assault craft. This is about 24 meters long with the wings in the forward position like this, and about 8.5 meters wide at the engines. It has 4 sublight engines in the back, typical Incom design there, like an X-Wing. It's capable of about 950 kph in atmosphere, so it's about as slow as a Y-Wing, and actually slightly slower than a Star Destroyer in atmosphere. So, it also does have a hyperdrive, and it's a pretty good one. It's a Class 1. It doesn't use astromech, though. Instead, it uses a nav computer, so it can only store a limited number of jump coordinates. It has a crew of 2, pilot and co-pilot slash, their officer engineer. And this is actually the same as the Black Hawk. And the Black Hawk can have 2 payload specialists, 2 door gunners, and this could as well. So 2 crew standard, 2 more optional. In its armament, we have these 2 medium heavy laser cannons in the front, and 2 more rapid fire light laser cannons could be mounted in the doors and deployed by those additional crew if you want. Again, much like the Black Hawk. So 2 to 4 lasers. So this is probably not sounding all that impressive. It's slow, only 2 lasers. Okay, it's got a hyperdrive, but whoop-de-doo. So where does this shine? Well, like most Incom designs, it has S-foils to kind of configure it for various things. This is forward. We can move them kind of midway, which looks funny as all get out. This would be kind of a cruise glide landing. This one moves as well. And these are meant for assault and transport and utility and cargo. It can carry quite a large payload for its size. It can carry up to 8 fully armed troops or up to 12 people without all their equipment. And on top of that, it can carry enough consumables, food, water, oxygen, fuel, to deploy for 2 weeks. So long range, long endurance, operating kind of semi-autonomously there. This is kind of the swept back mode for what would pass for higher speed flight. So again, it has kind of the same thing of like the Black Hawk helicopter. Deploying troops, bringing them supplies, and it can operate in either space or in an atmosphere. These were used for various assaults, boarding missions, and the idea was it's kind of in between a shuttle and a starfighter. It is heavily armored, and it has some pretty good sensor equipment on board. These were used quite famously at the Battle of Scarf, where they were getting the Death Star plans. One U-wing was at the base on Yavin during the attack on the Death Star, but obviously it wasn't deployed because it wasn't going to do anything to help except die. These continued to see use. There were a few at Endor where they came in useful following up the battle when they were trying to board and capture various Imperial ships to kind of get intelligence. And at least one was there at the Battle of Jakku in 5 ABY. Now, these were in pretty limited numbers for the Rebels. Again, there was only the one production run, and these early on experienced pretty heavy losses, not because it was necessarily a bad ship, but because it was put in harm's way as a strike aircraft, spacecraft, what have you. But I think it's an interesting addition to the canon. I like Incom's kind of styling, and it does blend a lot of different elements, and these wings are pretty unique. It's a really neat looking vessel in my opinion. So which one of these two do I like? The Hot Wheels or the titanium? The Hot Wheels here is just on its regular stand. You saw that the wings move. It's kind of interesting. They have a bit of a ratchet to them. But they position and they kind of click in place. Kind of neat. When you undo it, they go into place. This is about as far back as they go, and they are very nicely kind of locked into place there. So I was just feeling something, yeah. But that's about all they do. Typical screw holes in the bottom here that you find on these. Interestingly, the engines are metal, as is the whole body. The wings are the only plastic part, and the guns. That's a pretty good size, all told. So what about our titanium, our Black Series? As you saw, the wings also sweep, but these don't really have positions, they just have a hinge, which is fine, they don't move around. I feel like they might be at a different position on these. Let's see real quick. They're pretty much the same. I guess it's just kind of perception. This seemed to be longer on this one. This does have a few features. It has an opening canopy, pretty standard for the titanium Black Series. Not much inside. This would be where your two main crew would be located. And then the cargo would be on the bottom here in this kind of secondary deck. It also has a deployable landing gear. If I remember where it's at here. Oh. Well, maybe. I don't have the longest fingernails, so sometimes it's hard for me to grasp this stuff. Oh, well. You know what a landing gear looks like. Sorry. I tried. There we go. Ah, I spoke too soon. Ah, well, you get it. Landing gear comes down. Just, you know, it's tight. Just try to get that little lip. Also, a little interesting, the cannon, laser cannons in the front move. They kind of, you can push them in, kind of lock them in position, or you can stretch them out and move them up and down a bit, and kind of on a gimbal. And they're a little smaller, a little more authentic, whereas on the Hot Wheels, they're pretty big, a little oversized. So which one do I like better? Typically, I like the Titanium Black Series. And this is a nice little model. And it has more features. But I have to say I like the Hot Wheels more. This is a little heavier because of the engines being metal. This is a little bit lighter because that being plastic. And things like having the opening canopy didn't really do anything for me. And it also means there's this little lip here. The the landing gear is kind of neat, and I think the guns are neat. But what really sells me on the Hot Wheels are the wings. This one, like I said, it doesn't have any notches. It just kind of stays where it's at. And there are these very visible pivots here where these rotate. Nothing horrible. And I will admit that the screw heads are better concealed on this one, on the bottom. They have these very bulbous hinges here. And The wings are hollow on the underside. Nothing bad, but a little bit. This is odd because you don't typically see this on the Black Series. It's a very kind of plasticky feeling material, which is good. It means it won't break or bend too easily. But when you compare that to the Hot Wheels here, you don't have the hinges in the same way. They're kind of buried a bit. If you notice, they're located in a little bit of a different position too. They're kind of in the body. A little more up in here. You'll have to tell me which one's more screen accurate. But this one kind of hinges forward of the engines. And this one hinges kind of beside and behind them. Aesthetically, I just find that more appealing. And you don't have the big hinge hump here. Instead, it actually uses these two screw holes to hinge on. So at least it gets two uses out of those holes. And the wings are patterned on the bottom, solid. Very similar material they're made of, though. Here's the back ramp, kind of in between those. Notice it's kind of fat back here between the engines on this one. On the Black Series, this is all thinner back here. And you don't have those big screw holes. And the ramp is a little more indented. It's a little thinner all in the back there. Which one is more screen accurate? I would imagine in the back it's this one, but I could be wrong. But on the other hand, this one has this cutout for the gear, which when it's up like this is just a hole. And the Hot Wheels here is a little nicer looking in that area, in my opinion. Put the door there. So yeah, there's pros and cons to each. But overall, I just kind of like the Hot Wheels, which is odd because typically Hot Wheels versus titanium, I like the titanium. But you know, once in a while they get it right. I like how these have these very definitive areas. They pop and lock. Yeah, there's a neat wing configuration. I actually do like that one. And of course and they're nicely locked together. I really like the designs from Rogue One. They were much more adventurous than they were with Force Awakens. Pegging this in, it fits well, but it's just kind of a soft, I almost think of like a gummy. This is made of a very flexible material. So when it goes in, it just kind of gums in. On the other hand, the Hot Wheels stand is very hard plastic and it's clear. So it has more of a popping sensation when it goes in. Well, I've told you which one I kind of prefer. Now it's your turn. Which one of these two U-wings do you like? Or do you just not like the U-wing design at all? Let me know in the comments. As always, if you could, like, share, and subscribe. This is Misha, and I'll catch you very soon.